I would like to preface this video by saying, yes, I do know I ramble a lot. No, I'm not going to change it. Yes, you can yell at me in the comments. No, I don't care. Well, hello there. Metro 2033 is one of the best books that I've ever read, and one of my favorite video games of all time. If you have not read the book or played the game, what the hell are you doing here? I will now preface this video by telling you that this is only going to be about the original Metro 2033 book and the original Metro 2033 video game, as well as the Redux, but I like the original one more. But opinions out of the way, let me get into why I'm making this video in the first place. This is a book that took me over 6 years to finally finish. I don't really know why it took me so long to finish this book. Well, maybe part of it was I didn't own it for 4 of those years, and my friend wanted his copy back when I first started reading it. After that, I didn't think to buy my own copy until about 2 years ago. And I only just recently decided that I would stop procrastinating. But yeah, other than that, maybe I didn't want my experience with it to end. I adore the games, and the original version of Metro 2033 that I played on the Xbox 360 is probably one of my top games of all time. The Redux is fine and all, but I think there's just something magic about the jankiness of the original. I also, for some reason, always think of Artyom's voice as the voice that plays during the opening cutscene of the original game whenever you start it up. That voice is just iconic for me somehow, and his new voice in the Redux doesn't seem to fit as well in my head. As an English-speaking American, some parts of the book are a little hard to read because the Russian names confuse me a little bit. That doesn't stop me from wanting to read it, though, but it did make it hard to get through certain sentences, and sometimes certain paragraphs, as I had to read the names of metro stations that were not exactly normal for me to say. Hell, even our main character's home station, which was labeled as VDNKH, I didn't realize that I should be just throwing that all out. I didn't realize I should be throwing that out altogether in exchange for exhibition. I only realized it after I had finished reading the book in its entirety. Even though I had played all the games and Metro 2033 so many times, I hadn't realized I should just be calling it exhibition. In my head, I always read it as VDNKH. My stupidity aside, I really, really enjoy all the things that the book did, and I really enjoy all the things that the game did. But I want to discuss the differences between the two and how I feel about them. This isn't going to be an informational piece, this is just going to be me talking about my feelings. Before I get into that, though, I would like to point out that I was looking into some of the info about the books, and I found a quote from the author. I'm not going to say the quote out loud, but he was talking about the Dark Ones and how they're supposed to be a commentary on xenophobia. That subject is hard to discuss with most people, but I'm glad I read that little bit so it could help me understand, and I hope it helps you guys understand in some way as well. I think the main difference between the book and the games is that Artyom turns from a naive young man into a hardened soldier out of nowhere in between the two. I will get into my thoughts on that, theory crafting wise, a little later, but that's not important right now. Neither of them in both stories know exactly what they're doing or where to go, but the Artyom in the games seems to just abandon his, feelings of humanity in exchange for his feelings of aggression. He decides to embrace the gun over the words. Instead of talking his way out of a situation, which he rarely does in either, or learning about the situations of these metro stations, he opts instead for pushing through, buying the weapons he needs, and just going on to the next area, which makes sense for a video game. But when you're talking about the differences between this game and the book, they're different people entirely, it almost seems. Even the Dark Ones seem like they're different entirely. The Dark Ones in the game are shown to be kind and reaching out so much more often, but in the book, they just seem only as destructive and deadly all the way up until the end. That's not to say I don't like the differences between the book and the game. It makes the connections you can make feel more meaningful. There are a few things I wish would have been adapted into the game that weren't in there, like the cult of the giant worm and the hypnotic bioweapon Kremlin stuff. I would have loved to see those adapted in some way. Maybe even the hypnotic weirdo guy that's a part of the worm cult. I think they did their best with the bioweapon, though, because the amoebas were kind of the same thing. They were certainly just as annoying, it seems, but one was definitely much more deadly and had much bigger impact. In case I haven't said so already, spoilers. But when the little boy jumps into the biomass and wakes up his father, there's so much more, like, there's so much more punch, so much more power to the feeling that you get when you just see this little boy that they've been trying to save for so long now die in a moment. And it's just so strange that they would take this sort of thing out, but I guess there's no gameplay element to it. Maybe we can get a good movie out of it, though, and they'll fix that part entirely. I did hear about a movie, though. This is going to date this quite a bit, but I think it's coming out in 2021. Or at least that's what it said on the article I found. Could be wrong. I'm not going to fact check it. Or nor am I going to take this out. Anyways, back to some of the differences between the two. The names for some people, of course, are different because they Americanized a couple of them. Like Miller. Instead of Miller in the book, it is Melnick. Melnick is his name. And it took me a moment to realize it was him, but after realizing they called him Colonel and such, I realized it was Miller. Ullman is there too, and I believe, the guy from Metro Last Light was at the very end as well, but I think that might just be them appropriating that name for later use in Metro Last Light. I don't think he actually is the same person. But if he is, that'd be pretty neat, and it's something I wouldn't have found out on my own unless I had read the book, which is important. Read the book. Do it. If you've already read the book, congratulations. Here's a gold star, and some extra credit points, and a lollipop. Alright, no, I'm taking the lollipop back. Ah, yes, but I was talking about other things. Sorry, I get distracted very easily. Why Mike has a mask on? Just like the rest of us. Just like in Metro. I need a gas mask, honestly. The path that Artyom takes is actually quite similar to the path he took in the game. The path he took in the book is similar to the path he took in the game. It's just that the way of getting to D6 was so much different. Instead of the boy gets lost and they find the cult of the giant worm, it's Artyom goes to the library and goes very, very, very far in after trying to not die by some librarians, which were in the book. I didn't actually expect them to be in the book. I expected most monsters to just be made for the game, which I think the only thing that was made for the game were the Nosalises. The dog ones, I don't remember their names. The librarians, the demons, those were all there. The amoebas were kind of in the book, but the amoebas were probably brand new. I really think they could have made something work with the way that the book went about getting to D6. They could have gone with carrying the stretcher of the man all the way down through this very long, dark tunnel, but instead they went with the librarian option, and Artyom getting picked up just outside. It's things like that that, after reading the book itself, I really wish there'd be a more cinematic version of it. But at the same time, I have such a nostalgic love for the original game that I don't think that there's anything wrong with the way they did it. It'd be cool if they added some of these things instead of took them out or made them... They gamified it too much. I believe that the cult of the giant worm and that there was a hanging scene where Artyom almost died, and the men that saved him really should have been in there. That would have been amazing. I believe that Metro Last Light kind of did what Metro 2033, the original one, the original video game, they were able to like pick up the pieces that were missing from that game. Because some of the parts in 20 in Last Light, I don't believe anything from 2034 is actually about Last Light. Last Light is kind of a strange spin-off, but it does bring in a lot of the things that were in the original book, like just the communists in general. You deal with the Nazis pretty much the entire time and their threat, but you don't hear anything about the communists until you meet that group of, like, rebels, I guess you could call them. It's interesting how the conflict between the communists and the Nazis was so much more prevalent in the game. I guess it's just so you could have certain levels where you encountered them both. But enough postulating, let's go to theory time. I have a bit of a theory as to why these differences could be so different. The main theory is that they just wanted to make it into more of a game and to be more fun and give you choices instead of here's a linear path, because they did give you choice. They gave you the choice of being guns blazing or hiding in the crowd. And Guns Blazing is the canon version. It is the version they want you to have been, because if you play Metro 2033, Metro Last Light, if you play Metro Last Light, there is a section where you can listen to two soldiers speaking, talking about how there was a single man who went through the bridge section of the game, killed every person there, and they were just like, and nobody knows who did it. But you know, because you were the one who did it, standing right behind them, about to kill them both, because that's the canon Artyom. And this is true as well because of the ending of the game. The ending of the game, the true ending, is not the one where you realize the error of your ways and shoot the alignment device off of the tower. The true ending is you watch the nest of the Dark Ones burn. The thing is, throughout the game, you're supposed to be learning that they are not the real enemy. They are friends. They are just trying to communicate. And Artyom only realizes this at the end of the game. And he can realize this or he can't. And you can decide at that point. You can decide to shoot it off or just let it go. In the book, however, it is much darker and much more sad. They handle it in such an amazing way. You go back to Sukhoi. I think that's what his name was. I'll look it up later. Cut this out. They go back to Artyom's stepfather, and Artyom has one last conversation with him, because you don't get that in the game, and it was such a nice feeling to go back and like talk to him again. But you see him in there, he's just like, have some tea, and Artyom is asking him all these questions about how's the station doing. I heard my friend got attacked. And he goes into it and says, he basically alludes to, I'm not getting out of here, I have to protect the people leaving. So Artyom goes, he wants to save his stepfather. He wants to stop the creatures from destroying the entirety of the Metro. And the tower event is much more uneventful than the game. It's very tiring for him, as him and his two companions that go with him, Ulman and Pavel, they're climbing just so many stairs up this tower that used to be a restaurant to look over all of Moscow. And they get to the top. They give Miller the coordinates. And as they get them the coordinates, Artyom has a flash in his mind. The Dark Ones finally reached him. They say, you're the one. You were the one to bring us together. We have only been trying to communicate, not attack. And he's sitting there realizing, oh, these are the real humans left. These are the humans that have... These are the creatures that will take over the planet. They will help us. They will help us by being able to be up on the surface without dying, gasping for air. But just as he realizes that, all the missiles are descending upon the nest, and all the feelings of the Dark Ones are ripped away from him, and he no longer feels their presence. It is sad, depressing. He just collapses on the ground for a moment. He just stares in disbelief and then starts walking down the stairs. It's just the saddest and most depressing way to end a story, and it was incredible. And I so wish they would have done it like that. My theory is that the Archim from the book and the Archim from the game could very well be the same person. The one in the game has retained some of his memories of the previous, and he uses these to become a force of destruction. He tries his very hardest to carve out a path so that the young boy doesn't lose his life, so that the man he was traveling with doesn't lose their life, so that all the people that he could not protect then, he could protect now by not getting them involved. The only problem is, time travel brain mechanics probably wouldn't work like that, because we need to have a story still, and we need to have a good or a bad end. So what it would be is, he would have only certain memories of just regret. He would only have the memory of regret, and only know that he has to carve out this path with blood and bullets. Which is why we can still get the ending of letting the missiles go, because he doesn't know what that regret is for. He doesn't know if the regret is for his father dying. He doesn't know if the regret is for Miller getting involved, which Miller almost dies in the game, where, as in the book, he's nowhere near that tower. To speak of Metro Last Light a little bit, I do think it is the connecting force between the book and the game itself. It is the tightening up of the loose ends of Archim's story between the two. It puts all the things that should have been in the first game, at least into a second game. I don't know about the third one. Exodus seems like an exodus from the story itself, but I haven't read 2035, so I don't know what the difference is. Well, I've been ranting for a while now, and I don't really know what else to talk about, so I hope you all enjoyed me talking and ranting and raving and sounding like an absolute lunatic about a game and a book that I am just enamored with. The atmosphere is amazing, the music is great, the voice acting for the English is great, which is rare when it comes to different languages in English. And I just think it's an amazing series, and if you've listened to all of this and still haven't read or played either, heavy recommendation. And if you don't want to buy the game, it's really cheap on Steam. And also, if you just have an Xbox 360, you could probably find the original Metro 2033 for also very cheap. These are very old games that people don't really want to buy anymore. I would buy 2033 on the 360 again, but thankfully, I have it on Steam. I have both versions. I have the Redux and the original. And I think the original just has a certain flair, as I've said before. Either way, the Redux is cheap, Metro Last Light is cheap. You can buy the book as a Nook thing or whatever, or just, you can just download it. I think the original versions were free and crowd sourced as well. Glukowski got help writing it by like basically getting notes from the internet all the way back in like 2002. But yeah. Play the game, read the book, either way. This has been me talking. Thanks for watching. I'll see you whenever. Bye. This was a nice chance for me to gush about the game, actually. I don't get to gush about things very often, but I think this was a good time to do so. If you want me to gush about anything that you like, or you think I might like to gush about later on, leave a comment, let me know. I need ideas for videos because I am a lazy bastard. Okay, that's really it. Bye.